unrequited, terrifying. Love is driving me up insane. How to get this off my chest? I'm telling you today that when I talk to you, oh Cupid walks right through and shoots an arrow through my heart. And I sound like a lover. Don't you feel it to confess I loved you from the start? Confess I loved you, just thinking of you. You know I've loved you from the start. Can you turn the guitar on? Funny thing, I don't know the song. Okay. Okay. Ready? Now you say you're lonely. You cried the long night through. Well, you can cry me a river. Cry me a river. I cried a river over you. Now you say you're sorry for being so untrue. Well, you can cry me a river. Cry me a river. I cried a river over you. You drove me, nearly drove me out of my head. Well, you never shed a tear. Remember, I remember all that you said. Told me love was too plebeian. Told me you were through with me. And now you say you're sorry for being so untrue. Well, you can cry me a river. Cry me a river. I cried a river over you. I cried a river over you.
Another round of applause for our musicians. Nice job. That was great. Mrs. Zank and I were just talking like we should hire them. Someone should hook them up at a party or something like that. All right. We have period 2, Writers Week. All right. We're almost done. It's kind of a sad thing to think about. It's that Thursday. We're almost done. A couple of shout outs, some thank yous, boosters, right? We got to make sure that you go home, say thank you to your parents who are part of the boosters. If it wasn't for them, we could not do this, right? Shout out to Tech Crew. Have been awesome all week. Great job, Tech Crew. And then most importantly, I want to thank you all. You have been an outstanding audience all week. I know you're going to continue going on. I know you're going to come back for other performances going on today and tomorrow to enjoy. But without any more delay, I want you to enjoy your peers because they have some awesome things to say. Super looking forward to it. First up, we have Sophie.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. First, I wanted to do a quick shout out to Miss Fidala's second period lit class. And then I also wanted to shout out my mom because her birthday was yesterday. And then Catherine, my best friend, because her birthday is today. Okay, the piece I'm going to be reading today is inspired by an on the same page journal that we did in class for the book Interior Chinatown. And that book has a lot of themes about immigration, identity, and assimilation. So I wrote about womanhood and how my parents' immigration and my culture is different for women, especially because in my family, my mom makes a huge effort to keep our culture alive, and how remembrance is a little bit different for women in especially like a patriarchal system, because we have like a thing called a family register, and on both sides of the family, I'm basically non-existent because I'm not a boy. Okay. This piece is called Perennial, which is a flower that blooms every year after it's planted. Ever since you were old, you've dreamt of being young again. Opportunity-filled, black-haired, thin. You are currently a reflection of the generations of women before you. Illiterate, rough-handed, sun-spotted. You scrape the skin off lotus roots, peeling back layers of dirt and wrinkles and time. Simultaneously parched. And the most beautiful thing that ever was, your blunt fingers and shaved fingernails brushed 3 heads of dark shorn hair. The jade bangle around your wrist cuffs you to this life. The green brings out your blue veins, engorged and striking under your thin papier-mâché skin. Not youthful enough, but you've been practicing. Maybe tomorrow will be the day. A kind of dream, one where your mother appears to you and is so real, yet is only just a vision. Youth slips like sand between tightly fisted fingers, and her hair is 4 strands grayer than in your mind's eye. Somersaulting, heads rolling, hysteric bewilderment upon waking. Sunspots wreath your eyes, and you watch as you slowly become a reflection of her. In your memory, you trace the raised, bulbous blue veins on the back of her chapped hand, more prominent by the day. Last night, in your dreams, they were pale white and the softest pillow for your cheek. The irony of desire is that it's forever coy. Faceless, familiar, and forever out of reach, the image of your home is foreign to your child and also to you, for all it's developed in the years you've been away. You've become a time capsule for your culture, rather than a true reflection of it. The place you fought to preserve for your children through fables and legends is no more real to you now than those bedtime stories. In your dreams, your mother remains a thin red thread to a home that no longer exists. Can you change it? Can you be the one who actually breaks through? Can you break through the intricate silk threads woven together by 5,000 years of history, 200 generations of mothers, nameless and unidentified in the family register? Can you bring honor to women you've never met, never touched, yet have the same eyes and nose and lips and mouths as? Their fingers are bound by vibrant cords, knotted to their hurts. Knobbly fingers with thick knuckles teach you how to tie knots, swift movements like crane's wings slicing through the sky. In comparison, your fingers fumble like a baby duckling's awkward gait. But unlike their leather hands, simultaneously soft woven grass and indestructible iron bars, their feet remain crushed and folded, limping alongside your strong, padded ones. Centuries worth of desire rest behind your eyes that read, your hand that writes. You are only the second generation that can understand ink on paper. More than that, you can create. The words you leave behind ensure some semblance of permanence in a world marked by transience. What comes naturally to you is prefaced by a millennium of illiteracy. And yet your tongue awkwardly envelops what is familiar to them. The round, sloping sounds are foreign in your mouth, staccatoed by uncertainty. Your fingers turn white around the brush, creating ugly block characters with alien strokes. Their artistry is lost on you, thousands of years of craftsmanship discarded in one generation. But you have escaped, in a way. You sacrificed your history, something you may never understand or be allowed to return to in this land of renewal, but you are free. Your walk is unfettered by tradition, unrestrained by convention. Their wishes follow you, but never overtake your continent-bridging strides. You are separated from them by both thousands of years of history and thousands of miles of distance. But they are still alive, still remembered in your brow and your poise and your burning wishes. Slowly, their gnarled, knuckled fists unfurl. Their blue veins of jade soften. Their hopes and dreams bleed into you. Thank you. Okay, next up is Penelope.
Hi, I'm Penelope, and this is called Stop Sign and Stories. The feeling of nostalgia is bittersweet. My best friends live 2 houses behind me, and it's an understatement to say we saw each other every day from the ages of 3 to 13. The Feelies were twin boys, but everyone called us the triplets. Our elementary school was a half-mile away, and every day we walked there and back, the 3 of us, creating memories at every stop sign and corner. It's funny how you learn when you're little. You don't realize it in the moment, but everything around you shapes you into the person you grow up to be. Every day, our adventure to school would start the same way. I would carefully cross the same street with my hair in the same high ponytail. I had my pink sparkly Barbie backpack hanging off one shoulder because I thought it was the cool way to wear it. I would march up the Feelies' long driveway and not even bother announcing my presence before I opened the door. The Feelies always had their garage open. It was filled with so many toys that made up our childhood, I never once saw a car parked in it. Mr. and Miss Feely would already be on their way to work when it was time for us kids to get ourselves to school. Mike, Matt, and I, because if I didn't take responsibility, we would be late every morning, were in charge of getting ready for the day, grabbing their lunches from the fridge, feeding their dog Willow breakfast, putting her in her crate, and finally walking to school, which always seemed to be the hardest part to achieve. One morning in 2nd grade, I remember the 3 of us putting an extra pep in our step because it was cold outside and we were in our rebellious, didn't want to wear a coat phase. We had officially made it the furthest distance in the quickest amount of time when Willow came barking down the street chasing after us. Willow was known to dash at any opportunity she got, wanting to see the world off leash. Resentfully, Mike, Matt, and I dragged her by the collar all the way back to their house, finding we left the garage open, concerningly the door wide open, and obviously no Willow in her crate. At the time, I thought of this story as just an unwanted task that was 10 extra minutes of walking in the colds. I now see how it taught younger me to be responsible. That was the first and last time Willow wasn't in her crate. The 3 of us kids were so paranoid we would leave the garage open again, we would all place a hand on it and out loud say, "The garage is closed." In the big picture, this was a harmless event that only's consequence was a tardy in 2nd grade. I still have fear of Miss Sherman telling me the next one would go on my personal record. To this day, I can say with certainty that if someone trusts me with a task, no matter if it's the honor of babysitting a child or remembering to get my neighbor's mail while they're out of town, I'll fulfill it with pride. On the days that Mike, Matt, and I were ahead of schedule and didn't have to worry about our personal records being infected with tardies, we would take the scenic route to school. We would walk along the pond and take turns skipping rocks to see who could get the most hops, winning nothing but bragging rights. One day on our adventure to school, Michael pointed out something unusual in the pond, the same huge, fluffy blue yoga ball that I had in my room. "Penelope, that's your chair," Michael said with pure shock in his voice. "It must have blown out your window, down the street, and into the pond," Matthew concluded. "You're right," I said. "It must be." Michael took action. He rolled up his shorts and darted waist high into the green, cloudy water, lugging out what we thought was my chair. We were so proud that we saved it, we took turns rolling it back to my house. After dragging dirty pond water through the living room, across the kitchen, and up the stairs, we were very confused to find 2 blue yoga balls in my room. "Huh," we all said, and then continued on our walk back to school as if nothing had happened. None of us were surprised when we were yet again late to drop off. How was younger Penelope so naive? Did I really think a chair could simply blow through the window, over the hill, and across the street, and into the pond? I'm not sure, but reflecting back, I learned another valuable lesson. The people we surround ourselves with impact our decisions and our thoughts. I've learned that as high schoolers, I've learned that this is an important value, and it all traces back from the time that we were younger and the most impressionable. I've learned that the people I choose to create relationships with greatly affect me in multiple ways, and I choose to fill my circle with kind, genuine people that fill my heart. When the air started to turn warm and the loud, obnoxious sound of the cicadas started to chirp, we knew it was time for our favorite after-school game, cicada tag. Every day, Mike, Matt, and I would walk past the big tree whose roots were so gigantic we would trip on them almost every time. Around early September every year, the big tree became home to all the cicadas in town. Mike, Matt, and I knew the rules. When the bell rang, we waited for each other outside the sidewalk in front of the crazy stick lady's house, careful not to take a single step onto her yard until we were ready for our grand escape. Once we were all there, we'd run to the big tree and flip our shirts inside out, collecting as many cicadas in it as possible. The entire way home, you would hear our belly laughs and ear-piercing screams as we were being pelted by bugs. We sprint past other mothers, giving us concerning looks and probably judging why our mothers were letting these 3 immature second graders walk home alone. The days of getting pelted by cicadas lasted longer than you may expect. Now I pass the same big tree every day on my walk home from high school, and as I see hundreds of cicadas grasping onto the tree, I can't help but smile, reminiscing of our own special version of tag. As high school students, I believe we have all learned to know the look of when someone is judging us. When I was laughing and running through the streets throwing insects at my closest friends, I didn't seem to have a care in the world of what others thought of me. We need to be reminded that what other people think of us shouldn't matter as long as we're happy. My mom always says what others think of us is none of our business. It's so easy to walk through the hallways thinking that every look, stare, or giggle that is exchanged is directed towards you. Embrace your unique and don't let other people's opinions stop you from living the life you love. Life seems so simple when we're younger, but why can't it always be that way? If second graders can learn valuable life lessons from silly stories, why can't we laugh at ourselves now when we fail? Little Penelope would be proud to hear that I'm living for her then, for me now, and for the woman I want to become in the future. Thank you. Next up, Sia.
Hi, I'm Sia, and this is called Just in Case. I was only 3 years old and my parents began their divorce. From that moment on, my life became a constant split between 2 homes. Mom's house always felt like the better place to be. It was warm and full of love. My grandma lived there, my mom was nurturing and kind, and there were 2 dogs, Bronx and Princess. At the time, there was only Bronx, who was a Rottweiler, but after I was bitten by a dog at my aunt's house, my love for even Bronx turned into fear. My mom couldn't stand to see me so fearful, so to help me heal, she brought Princess into our lives, a small, gentle dog who over time became a comforting presence. Bronx, on the other hand, was a big dog, and in my young eyes, he was the scariest dog I'd ever met. Despite my fear, Bronx was part of my world, and I never quite understood how much he meant to all of us. Then, one day, everything changed. As I was getting ready to leave for my dad's house, Mom called us into the living room. Her voice was quiet and serious, and something in her tone made my heart sink. "Kids," she said gently, "I want you to say goodbye to Bronx. This might be the last time you see him." Hearing that, my young mind tried to make sense of it. The first thought that sparked inside me was that Bronx was just going to daycare. It was a familiar, safe explanation, something I could hold on to. I slowly reached out to touch his fur. I didn't want to, but I knew I had to. "Bye, Bronx," I said quietly as I walked out the door towards the car. I glanced back one last time. Bronx looked back at me with calm, gentle eyes. I had no idea then what my mom's words truly meant or how much that goodbye would stay with me forever. Monday night, after gymnastics, we finally came back to my mom's, and as we walked through the door, something felt off. Bronx wasn't there to greet us, it was only Princess. The things I used to get upset about, like a large wagging tail, barking, and running to the door, were all gone. A knot tightened in my stomach. I glanced around the house, calling his name. Nothing. No sound of his big paws, no collar, just silence. That's when I saw my brother, sitting quietly on the couch alongside my mom, his eyes red. "Bronx is gone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I froze, unsure if I heard him right. No, maybe he's just hiding, I quickly thought, not ready to believe it. I turned and ran to the room where he sleeps every night, calling his name quieter and quieter each time. The room was empty, no Bronx, no sound. I stood there for a second, hoping he'd come running out from behind the dryer, tail wagging, but nothing happened. With a sinking feeling in my chest, I slowly walked back upstairs. I didn't want to ask, I didn't want to know, but I had to. My voice trembled as I looked at Mom and asked, "Where's Bronx?" She looked at me, eyes red, alongside my grandma. "Bronx is gone, honey," Mom said softly, her voice full of sadness. Ever since Bronx passed, my brother has never let me forget the moments we shared. He would follow you around even when you ran from him, he'd say with a soft smile. When he brings up those memories, my chest tightens because I was too afraid to love Bronx the way he deserved. When I was young, I told myself it was okay because he had everyone else to pet him and give him the love I didn't. But after he was gone, that thought stopped comforting me. I loved him, but I didn't show it, and that's something I've always carried with me. Now we have Bronx's niece. She's a Rottweiler too, with smaller, softer eyes and the same calm presence Bronx had. When we got her, the vet told us she wouldn't live long, maybe 3 years if we're lucky, they said. She recently just turned 6. She's been through so much, and because of Bronx, because of everything I didn't do back then, I'm more careful with Brinks. I pet her a little longer, hold her a little tighter, and say the things I never said to Bronx. I love you, Brinks, I say to her every night before bed, just in case, just so she knows. Next up is Mai.
This stand brings back memories because in one act, this was in one of my last scenes, and that was a pretty big thing. I have a poem. I wrote this when I was going through a hard time in the winter. So just like little warning. It's called To be patient is to be strong. Patience is key, they tell me, setting the oven timer to a certain amount, making me wait for the food to be ready. I was always praised for being so patient when I was little, so this wasn't something that I'd have a problem with. But now that I'm grown and that food is long gone, I still wonder to myself, how much longer? Not for the food, for me. How much longer do I have to wait until I grow up? How much longer do I have to wait until I feel taller? How much longer do I have to wait until I feel free in my own body? How much longer do I have to wait until I feel like I'm in control of myself? How much longer do I have to wait to be me again? It feels like I'm trapped in a numbing purgatory, suffocating in a time-draining loop, knowing that one day, but obviously not today, because why would it be today? It'll all be worth it. But how do I know if it's worth it? Won't I regret it? If I make a mistake that alters the path towards that day, how much longer will it take? I want to be free. I really do. I want to dive deeper into the unknown, relishing the feeling of the oddities and the new emotions that come with it. But then again, I'm still scared. Some part of me still wants to stay in that loop. It's safe, it's predictable, it's home. There'll be nothing to catch me off guard, and I yearn for that safety. A part of me wants to linger in that intoxicating bliss, the very thing I've tasted for years without anything else to cleanse my palate. At the end of the day, I know that I'm right, that my patience will reward me soon. I understand that no matter how draining it is, it's the only thing that'll keep me alive. As I pass through time, I will embrace the path ahead of me. Through thorns and burrs, through buds and blooms, through loss and rebirth. My body, through my indomitable spirit, will carry on. To be patient is to be strong. Thank you. Next up, we have Cecilia.
Hi, my name is Cecilia, and the piece I'm going to be reading today is part of my Delights and Wonders journal, which is a journal devoted to recognizing the beauties in life. And the specific prompt for this one was about the beauty of nature. Nature is multifaceted. Opposing sides entangle within one another, mushing and bonding into a singular entity. One, the beauty and serenity of the rustling leaves, whistling winds, and towering mountains as their melodies harmonize, crescendoing and decrescendoing to catalyze emotion in life. The other, a justification of incompetence, meant to make those advocating for themselves servants to the tyranny of others' unsympathetic behavior. as people dismiss their actions as just their just their nature. How can such emancipated bliss and breath be mangled into the delegitimization of one's heart and yearn? Walking along the crystal sea, waves caressing my feet and sand dusting my face, they give me the notion to fall into its salty embrace. However, simultaneously they provide acceptance, as I am welcome to stay put and luxuriate in the light touch of water. The ocean won't tug at my boundaries for their own benefit and cover their narcissism with a pitiful attempt at scientific reasoning, saying, I was just born that way. You weren't born that way. Each action made is a choice, not a nature, as the human is the one to build the habits and reflexes, choosing not to go against their normalcy. And for why should I be constrained to your ignorance, your lust for egotistical routine, your inability to see the harm in your actions, the way my heart weeps and my feet sink into the quicksand of your denial and negligence? However, if we play that game, my nature is to be who I want, act how I want without the constraint of your selfish desires. Yeah. Next we have Ritter.
Hi, I'm Ritter. I'm a sophomore. This is my first time presenting at Writers Week. Shout out to Mrs. Weidig's second period honors English. And shout out to Fremd Science Pool because I said I should. This is a more informative piece as opposed to a personal one. It's titled Case Study Antagonists. Antagonist, noun. A person who actively opposes or is hostile to someone or something, an adversary. The Oxford Languages. That is the definition we will be working with for today. I was bored and wanted to write something at least mildly interesting for Writers Week, so I decided to do a deep dive on what makes certain fictional antagonists iconic for the protagonists they face. I'm speaking of well-known rivalries such as Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones, Link and Ganondorf. If you don't live under a rock, you instantly recognize most of these names. However, what exactly makes them popular? Their intimidating appearance? Their complex motives? The protagonists who oppose them? This question is the one I will try to answer. Our first example is arguably the most iconic villain in all of literature, Count Dracula, the character who single-handedly inspired the concept of vampires as a whole. Dracula has left a lasting impression to this day, cited by numerous creative projects. In doing research for this presentation, I discovered that there is a real historical figure who inspired the blood-sucking beast. This is none other than Vlad the Impaler, a prince of Wallachia, modern-day Romania, during the 1400s, known for his extreme brutality. Some accounts depict him as impaling his foes and dipping bread in their blood. One of the reasons this trait inspired what is the first universal trait of vampires, the necessity to drink blood. One of the reasons Dracula is such an iconic villain is that he's tied to such a brutal, eccentric warlord. Vlad also suffered from a condition known as hemolacria, which made his tears contain blood, which also presumably helped inspire his legend. Another trait that connects Dracula to Vlad is that they were both nobles, despite their brutality, which is perhaps another character trait that makes Dracula stand out, due to nobles typically being associated with professionalism and regality, as opposed to brutality and gruesomeness. The second example I decided to research is none other than Darth Vader. In researching him, I documented what I thought made him so iconic. I believe the main reason is his contrast with Luke Skywalker. Luke is nimble and agile. Vader wears a bulky suit with a draping cloak, adding to his intimidating silhouette. Luke shows his face. Vader's is hidden behind a mask. Luke uses a green lightsaber, which is the inverse of Vader's red. Another trait that makes him so memorable is his apparent lack of a soul in the first two films. In The Empire Strikes Back, Vader cuts off Luke's, his own son's, hand, whilst fully being aware that Luke is his son. He even states that the former soul of Vader, Anakin Skywalker, is dead. This cruelness depicts him as an unfeeling cyborg for the majority of the trilogy until his redemption in Return of the Jedi. Vader's redemption and the act of him betraying Emperor Palpatine also contributes significantly to his fame, as the scene where he lifts up his former puppeteer and tosses him into the reactor shaft of the Death Star, whilst also being electrocuted, is a powerful scene that ends the original trilogy. The final antagonist I will talk about is a robot from an iconic video game, GLaDOS from Portal. For those unfamiliar, in Portal, GLaDOS is a sadistic, hyper-intelligent AI in control of the ruined Aperture Science Laboratory, forcing the player to participate in tests involving use of the portal gun. However, there is a reason GLaDOS behaves like this. GLaDOS was originally a person who was uploaded into a machine. Caroline, assistant to Cave Johnson, who was the founder of Aperture Science. However, the GLaDOS project was regarded as a failure, and her memory was suppressed through the use of the personality cores, turning her into a cold, unfeeling machine. She is memorable because she has a valid reason to turn evil, and despite all that, she still decides to aid the player after Wheatley, another character, betrays them while fighting GLaDOS a second time in Portal 2. Although she has her own motivations for this, which is taking control of the facility back from Wheatley, she still allows the players to leave at the end of the game after the trials she and the player go through. While she guises this as the player being too much of a hassle to kill, is quite obviously a shift in morals as she rediscovers her past. I would write much more, but I do have a word limit. I'll leave you with one final message. While all of these antagonists can be considered evil, not all antagonists are. For instance, both Providence from Risk of Rain and Frankenstein's monster are examples of morally good or ambiguous characters, but they stand in the way of the protagonists of their series, putting them under the umbrella term antagonist. Thank you. Next up is Junia.
Hi guys, my name is Junia. Shout out to my second period interning class, AP Lang with OD. And today I'll be reading a piece inspired by one of my favorite poets, Olivia Gatwood, on how she talks about how she's kind of like unbridled by a sense of patriarchy, but mine is kind of in opposition to that. So I'll be first reading the poem, and then I have a short contextualization after, and my contextualization does have a brief mention of gender-based violence, so if you need to step out, please feel free to. Alternate universe. When the male barista at my favorite coffee shop calls me sweetheart, I smile until my teeth ache. I tip $2 extra for the privilege of being perceived. When my calculus teacher tells me I talk too much, I press my tongue flat against the roof of my mouth until it fossilizes there. When the man interrupts me, I laugh like he's made my reticence a quip. I learn to collapse mid-sentence so he can stand taller in my silence. I know apology is a mother tongue. I say sorry when the wind changes direction, when the ice breaks, when I do not know the answer to a question I was never asked. I cry pretty, I cry quietly, I cry into the sleeve of a stranger who will never notice. I call it tenderness, I call it devotion, I call it a trick of the light. My grandmother says this is what women do: soften, fold, make themselves easy to carry. My mother calls it grace, my friends call it survival. I call it leaking. I call it disappearing. But in the hours left over from the other universe, I imagine what it would mean to say no without explanation. I picture myself eating loudly, spitting seeds onto the table, laughing with my whole throat. I picture myself keeping all my sorries in a jar until they ferment and fizz. I pour them out on the ground like champagne, sugary, sticky, and golden, and I leave the mess for someone else to clean. Here, I stop rehearsing my own collapse. Here, I do not tremble. Here, I am unshatterable. So I had been working on this piece for a little while, but I put the finishing touches on it a few evenings ago during my daily evening doom scroll. I came across a TikTok which essentially said that women were one of the most oppressed groups of people around the world, and I couldn't agree more. And when I thought about it, in every single culture, in every single country where women live, there is always a standard for how they are allowed to exist. In Afghanistan, women are banned from receiving education, holding a job, and from speaking in public spaces, as if the act of perceiving the female gender is somehow an undue societal burden. In China, during the era of the one-child policy, millions of female infants were aborted, abandoned, or killed. Their lives were deemed worthless simply because they were born female. Elsewhere, gender-based violence may not be as palpable, but misogyny and patriarchy are still deeply ingrained into the moral arc of society. In the US, we are not even one lifetime removed from when our highest higher education institutions began to admit women as students. Further, the culture of Americana itself has this deep fascination with how imperialism may be used to demand female submission. On a smaller scale, implicit sexism permeates the language of our daily life. Female doctor, maiden name, man and wife, and for the French classes here, the word meaning wife, femme, is one and the same with the word meaning woman. Even here, among fellow students, hallway whispers only refer to female peers as loud, their volume somehow unwelcome. It seems that everywhere I look, everything exists as a microcosm for the oppression of women. Here, I know that women are expected to adapt endlessly to systems that were never built for them, and then praised for their resilience as if it were a virtue rather than a necessity. Yet, because these violences have become so mundane, they are reframed as tradition, as not a big deal. And because of this, women are told that history is just history, that progress has already clearly happened, and worse, that we overthink our own erasure. I remember how early girls are made to learn this, to measure their voices, to live in apology, and to always make themselves agreeable. How ambition is only encouraged when it is palatable, and confidence only when it does not threaten. To be a woman, it seems, is to exist under constant instruction. There is no clean way for me to end this. There is only your choice, to learn, to act, and to uplift. Thank you.
Hello again. This extra piece I have was written for a college supplemental, and some of you guys may recognize which school this is from, or for. Okay. I'm pretty convinced my mom is a fairy. Every plant she touches magically finds the will to live, no matter how wilted or yellow. She has revived countless thirsty orchids and waterlogged cacti, and with each plant saved, the more our house looks like a post-apocalyptic building being reclaimed by the natural world. And so, growing up with one brother and hundreds of succulent siblings, my mom emphasized the virtue of 修剪, trimming, a contronym that has shaped my approach to life in very different ways over time. She told us that, like her plants, as we grew up, we would eventually need to shed things to better ourselves day by day. By choosing the strongest, most upright stem and clearing away the weaker branches, the plant could grow healthier and stay protected for longer. Observing the hours she spent in her garden, carefully tending to overgrown branches and removing excess yellowing leaves, I thought that this dedication to perfection was something I needed to master, something that could help me grow too. I treaded carefully through school, church, and even at home, hyper aware of each mistake and wilting leaf. I carried around a pair of shears with me everywhere I went, a precaution against imperfection. To grow stronger, I learned to preemptively prune myself before anyone else noticed the overgrowth. My anxieties grew larger and my improvements followed, yet I felt more restricted and fearful. The more I trimmed, the fewer stems remained for me to grow. Before I realized it, my mom's advice that had been given out of care had become a constraint that controlled me. It wasn't until I revisited my mother in her somehow even more expansive garden that I recognized what I had misunderstood. Cucumbers climbed over the makeshift netting my mom made. Tomatoes and eggplants needed cages, not to confine, but to support the vines as they grow heavy with fruit. She had left the perilla leaves alone. They do just fine without any help. On the other hand, the lilac and raspberry bushes required careful maintenance and renewal pruning. Each of my mom's plant babies demanded different methods of care to grow. Excessive trimming would have killed any of them. I finally grasped that trimming, in the truest sense of the word, did not mean constant correction. Instead, it meant choosing what to keep to grow stronger and better than before. Plants don't grow because they're punished. They grow because they're tended to. In English, to trim means to prune, but it also means to decorate, to love something and to adorn it. In Chinese, 修 means to fix as well as to build. I've learned from and I continue to strive to be okay with mistakes. Not all of my problems need a solid solution as long as I can continue to 修剪 myself. The parts of me that still require growth don't need to be cleanly cut. Instead, I'll trim those areas. I'm not something in need of correction as much as someone still in construction. I stopped trimming to prevent imperfection. I started trimming to allow growth. Just like my mom's plants, my flowers will bloom naturally as long as they have enough space to grow. Thank you.
Sorry. Oh, I'll just hold it. It's fine. I have another story. I wrote it about one of my experiences in marching band, which I'm excited for next season. So, it's called My Shoes. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. The sun is way past setting. The football game just ended, the marching band had chanted their goodbyes for the night, and I was on my merry way to change out of the stinky uniform I had been in for the last 4 hours. I'd take off my shoes, then take off the top part, then slip out, slip out of the overalls. No mess ups, no rushing, no nothing. Nothing could ever go wrong with this. Usually, anyways. As soon as I wriggled myself out of the stiff overalls, a loud alarm sounded off almost immediately after I reached for the hanger I would have hung my uniform on if I got the chance. The band kids in the room, including me, started joking about it. As some of us locked in with the alarm, we started goofing off. We started beatboxing to the alarm's constant downbeats. Some kids started marching to its tempo, replicating the choreography in our drill sets. Others just laughed at the dancers and covered their ears from the blaring alarm sounds. We did basically anything a normal musician would have done to a sudden beat. That fun was short-lived, though. After a few seconds of goofing off, the teachers came into the room, breaking up the laughter and telling everyone that it had been deemed a serious threat. Okay, everyone, you know the drill. Everyone out. As soon as our director popped his head into the band room, everything stopped for a second before actually taking any action. I, just like many others, immediately booked it out the door. I wasn't thinking. I didn't take my phone, didn't take a water bottle out, didn't bring anything with me, period. I was out in the building in a quarter of a minute. I forgot a lot of stuff inside the band room, even essentials. You might be asking, hey, Mai, how could you have forgotten essentials? It's a fire. The only essentials are yourself. I'd be asking myself the same question at the time, but my friends helped me out on that part. Mai? What? Where's your shoes? What? What do you mean? Your shoes. You're barefoot. I look down. Damn, I am barefoot. Uh-oh. Turns out in the rush of me trying to get out, I had completely forgotten to put back on my shoes. Funny thing is, I had 2 pairs of shoes near me before I ran out. My normal shoes and my marching shoes. I forgot to put either of them on. I didn't get upset about it, though. I laughed it off as soon as I realized the lack of my shoes on my feet and felt the uncomfortable feeling of walking on the uneven pavement full of gravel and chipped rocks from over the years. Of course, I felt silly, but not in a guilty way. I was safe outside with my friends, still having a good time after a long, tiring night. What was there to be sad about? The fire alarm thing kept going on for almost half an hour until he got checked by the fire department and the guys that fixed the alarm system. In those 30 minutes, I was giggling and playing around with my friends. One of my friends was quick and smart enough to bring her phone out. My other friends were choreographing an interpretive dance of the situation we were in, which was crazy silly. And we made sure that we had the time of our lives. After a bunch of continued goofing off, we sat on the benches for a little while, talking to each other as if nothing happened. I was probably swinging my legs too. There wasn't a lot of freaking out, just pure, simple fun. I never knew the actual reason the fire alarm went off. Some of our collective guesses that the fire alarms were acting up on themselves for no reason, the vending machine malfunctioned, exploded, and caused a crazy fire, or that one of the kids from the school we were playing against got butthurt about the score. And I think it was something along the lines of 52 points to 7, so I would be at least a little butthurt too. And pulled the alarm trigger because it thought it'd be funny. It wasn't really that funny though. In my heart, the second theory was right, but both of the vending machines in my school are in okay condition, and they don't really look like they've been exploded and repaired overnight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm back, and I'm going to read one of the supplementals for one of my college essays, like Sophie. So this one's kind of about my own inquisitiveness, my own curiosity, and how I express myself through learning. Through the glass of my family room coffee table lay a black book twice the size of my head, clad with bold letters, The Elements. I grasped the matte cover and flipped through the pages in awe. Looking towards my chemist dad with curious eyes enveloping my 5-year-old face, I asked, "Why is there a picture of the sun on the page with hydrogen?" I butchered the pronunciation and pointed at the sun graphic on the first page. Listening to his response, more questions flooded into my brain, resting on the tip of my tongue, waiting for him to finish his explanation. Curiosity sparked inside me that day and continues to rage on inside me. As I matured, my inquiry pushed me to grow academically. School was a field of information, and I hoped to reap its benefits by taking advanced classes, immersing myself in my learning, and transferring skills from the classroom into my everyday life. As questioning gave me answers and answers gave me strategy, my academic and emotional understanding heightened as I developed routine: question, solving, reasoning. Inquiries of what occurs in my brain for me to feel varying emotions, or to what extent can siblings vary from one another behaviorally, became the focus of my interest. Thus, I problem-solved per usual. However, on the track to answer such questions, I came across challenges in understanding the material as I struggled to comprehend my thoughts or my siblings' behaviors. I was confused. Previous explanations had come quickly to me, so I asked myself, what is different now, which is hindering my comprehension? My answer: my thinking was too simplistic. I had relied too much on mental strategy that didn't apply to this situation, causing me to innovate new methodologies for problem solving. Therefore, I evolved, as my intrigue helped me solve my problems internally and externally. My curiosity gives me motivation to search for reasonings and pushes me to try my hardest towards achieving my goals. My curiosity is my identity. It's the piece that keeps me going and going every day. Thank you.
All right, one last round of applause for our presenters this hour. We are just about out of time. If you were inspired by any of these, remember, you can still present, unless you're a senior, next year. So submit. Get on up here, right? Share your words. Great job today. It was awesome. That was awesome. Great job, second hour. See you tomorrow. Next week, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.